the light control. Okay, for example, there is also another one which is in Australia there are very strong regulations on fire suppression systems within the stadium because it's a public venue. So there is a special program that monitors some of the fire suppression systems in the public areas. Again, that's a separate system, so we just outsource. We say you're not part of our ISMS scope. You do it or your way. We outsource it. Here's the contract. You do it. You take care of it. So suddenly we don't have to worry about bringing that into the ISMS. Okay, so we did a lot of that right at the beginning. And we also involved the certification body right from the beginning because it was an unusual business. See, a lot of certifications happen at a purely service business or a manufacturing business or whatever, but on a stadium it is like immediately, what are these guys trying to do? So we involved them right from the start. So in Australia, it is Standards Australia or SAI Global now that do the certifications for ISO 27001. We actually involved them. We paid their consultant to come and sit with us initially in the first few meetings and look at the progress. So we involved them quite early so that they could then advise us if needed, if we needed to change direction on certain things. Not, yeah, no, they are only guiding. No, don't do it this way, do it this way. My suggestion is like, if you do this wrong, you will fail, definitely fail. If you do this right, you will be better. Like that. So we actually involved them in the overseeing of the process. That's what we did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were more of recommendatory in nature. And
not even recommendatory, it's just sort of, yeah, well, don't do this sort of
don't
thing.
do that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
More than that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Not get involved in this implementation of
No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah. And usually their recommendations were what not to do. That's what they were. Okay, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. But it was okay because we involved them early. What we did is we refined the scope as the project progressed as well. So NSM is the National Sports Museum which is housed within the MCG. And it has so much, what do you call it? So many expensive assets. You know, Don Bradman's bat is there. Sachin Tendulkar, when he scored the century, he signed it, he kept a bat there. You know, like that, there's so much of memorabilia there, which is extremely expensive and priceless. You know, the Tendulkar's hat, Don Bradman's hat. You know, Kapil Dev took, if you remember in 1981, I think, Kapil Dev took 9 wickets in the match and won it was the first ever victory at the MCG that the India scored. The ball that he used is signed by him and kept there. So it's priceless stuff. So what we did is, because their systems were in no way really connected to the MCG as such, it's a separate body, statutory separate body, management is separate, and it only uses the MCG premises to house the exhibition. So we actually scoped it out and we said, we don't want to worry about yours, your scope. So we modified the scope as we went along, okay, to make it more suitable to what is more important and more relevant. And importantly, we did extremely stringent internal audits. Internal audits were as if, you know, internal audits were worse than the surveillance audits, and they are still today. So we look at every little detail, everything is looked at. Everything is physically inspected. We follow a very, very stringent mechanism so that we never fail. We didn't fail the first time, and then we never fail again in the surveillance audit. And it also became because the internal itself was so stringent, it became a preparatory thing for all those control areas to show and how the control is to be exhibited to the auditor. Some of the roadblocks, I guess there was a lot of resistance from traditional power bases to start off with, but education really did help a lot, and taking everybody along with us helped a lot. The management perspective helped a lot because we were talking the same language that they could understand. Okay, that's what we did. We had some major issues with TV coverage, Channel 9, because they're law unto themselves, and they would just start bringing in things on their own. Well, we are not, they'll start changing some of the audio systems, because now suddenly stump mic comes in, suddenly this comes in, without any change, last minute. So we found it very, very difficult to deal with those guys. And the same with the footy. During the footy season, the Channel 7 in Australia has footy, and it was the same issue. So very, very difficult we found. I don't think they've still come around. They still do what they please, and we try to, there's always a friction, always friction. So it's one of those roadblocks. So what do you just live with it, probably, and that's what we do at MCG. We just live with it. Interdepartmental support was sometimes a little bit of a roadblock, okay, because HR, the HR lady was not particularly helpful in the initial, although we took them along and everything. Why do I need to be involved? It is the IT security. Why do I need to be involved? That used to be her comment at every meeting. So no matter how much we tried to. So there's personalities. And you just have to take people along and try and cajole. And we actually found that one of her assistants was trying to actually prove herself within the, she was trying to establish herself. So we took her, said, you do this. And she actually did a lot of work for us. So that's how we did it. Yeah, and we did give her a little bit of a bonus in the end. And vendor influences. Oh my God. And forgive me if there are any vendors here. But every vendor, I can tell you, tries to sell everything under the sun by saying this is ISO 27001 compliant. And I'm not kidding you. Okay? And it really, really was very, very difficult, okay, to try and reduce their influences. So as a quick example, I'll tell you, right? I'll show you. So this is what happened a few years back. So the scoreboard caught fire. The LCD, this new vision scoreboard, caught fire. From the moment it caught fire, this was actually during a game. Okay. TV was covering this. As you can see, there is people sitting here, etc. This area was evacuated, everything. So the drill happened perfectly well. In fact, the fire was brought in control from when the fire was detected to its complete dousing took exactly 17 minutes. 17. The whole incident lasted 17 minutes. The press made a big hoo-ha out of it. Oh, you know what? People almost died. This happened, that happened. Nothing. There was nobody there because everybody was evacuated. Okay? So they made a big deal. But what happened is around that same time, we were doing a DR, disaster recovery, in line with ISO 27000. We said, look, we need to look at the DR and set up a DR because we don't actually have a proper DR at the MCG. Okay? That was one of the findings that we had right at the outset. The way MCG is, and this is just an aerial sort of a picture, the way it is, there's a rail station, there is a train station here. This suburb is called Richmond. This suburb is called, it's a completely different suburb, by the way, because the ground area is so huge. Okay? So this is a different suburb. It's like, this is one suburb, this is the second suburb, this is East Melbourne, and as you can see, this is the actual central business district, these straight lines, because Melbourne is, I don't know whether you know, Melbourne is all straight and perpendicular lines in the CBD. So that's the central business district. So there is a power feed that comes from here, there is a power feed comes from this, there's a power feed comes from Richmond, there's a power feed comes from East Richmond. That's Jolimont area, East Melbourne and Jolimont area. Okay. There is roads that come from each of the suburbs. There is train. There is a tram that comes from here. There is a tram that comes from the city side. Okay. So it's a very well serviced geographical area, both in terms of power, IT and roads and various other requirements. But a vendor said during that time, see, if this happens, this fire thing happens, you have to have a dedicated data center which is in Sydney. You should have it because it's so far away, it's a different power grid for a different thing. When we did the risk assessment of it, okay, the way MCG, the way we were thinking is, we already have different power grids coming in. Okay? The way the stands are built, okay, because of the fire regulations, the way the stands are built, there is actually concrete walls between here that completely separate. firewalls that completely separate different sections. So if the fire is in a particular section, you evacuate only that section. You don't evacuate the whole ground. It is stupid to try and get 100,000 people out of there in 5 minutes will be disaster. All right? So it was built to take away only certain sections. So what we said is what we will do is in the Great Southern Stand, we will have the main data center and we'll have a fallback. We'll put a fiber underneath and we'll put in the MCC reserved in the Northern Stand, we'll have the DR center. Okay, fully equipped DR center. There was so much pressure from this big blue company because obviously they had targets to meet to sell their data center in Sydney, obviously, and it's a part of it. But there was so much pressure on the CEO, so much so that the CEO called me and said, what is going on, why are you resisting and what is happening? They tell me that this is the only way to do it in ISO 27001. I said, no sir, we've realized that the risk is acceptable. So the only time both the data centers will be down is if the whole ground has blown up. I'm sorry, but IT is the least of your worries at that time. You've got many other worries that you need to worry about. Okay, you will not be worried about whether my membership system is up or down. Nobody cares at that time. Okay? So those are the kind of things that roadblocks that we did get. I've got only 10 odd minutes, so I'll rush through this. In fact, not even 10 minutes, 5 minutes, we started late. So some of the positives were I think we actually were successful because of the involvement of the business. We were actually quite successful in actually creating a risk-aware culture within the organization. And we also conversely, we actually increased the IT's profile within the business because suddenly the business realized that IT is working for me and trying to make things happen for me rather than trying to put roadblocks in me by calling this as a ISMS or calling it as a something else. And that was one of the best things that we could do. And that was only possible because of the education and the management perspective that we put in place right from the word go. It also gave IT a better understanding of its place in the business because the IT manager was not, this, turf management guy, he never listens to me and does things. Well, hold on. He's right. Because if he fails in something, there will be no game tomorrow. If your membership system fails, game will still go on. Doesn't matter. If your turf management system fails for a day, game will still go on because turf is still there. Okay. So those were the kind of, so actually it helped IT understand where are they really placed, that they are not the most important thing in the ground. There's other things that are more important in terms of actually conducting an event. I think that's pretty much it. Can I get some discussions going? Because I know I've got slides, but I've ended up preaching all the time, which I didn't want to do.
Maybe this is a non-technological question, but was there any business continuity in case of a rain, etc., for the ground per se?
For
the ground.
For the ground itself,
yeah.
Yes, there is business continuity plans in place,
So
which involves which involves emergency services, so police, fire, the SWAT team that is a terrorist, because that's the biggest worry they have is terrorist activity is what the biggest worry they have. They do have rehearsals, so we do have rehearsals. No, business continuity as well we have in that case. So how will the actual club function? There are specific workarounds that are manual workarounds that are created. There is in terms of disaster recovery, disaster of the situation, yes, but it also has a business continuity. Where will we function from? So there are some important things like people counting, how many people were in a particular area, how many servers were in a particular server, in the sense the food guys and the drink guys and so on and so forth. That actually doesn't fall under IT at all. It's a completely different process, and it is actually governed by the National Critical Infrastructure organization that Australian government has, which does it for all the nationally important infrastructures that are in Australia, and MCG is one of them.
Okay. Maybe I would put this question in a different way. See, the slides that you showed for the games, time was very sensitive because you have 3 games on the weekends, etc.
Yeah.
Now, what you said is more of a man-made disasters. But what I'm talking about is, say, suppose if there's a rainfall, then can they have the games, or was that part of the ISO 27001 or not? First question.
Yeah.
And if it was, then okay, what you did for the business continue in case of rainfall, etc., and the games can continue.
Okay. So, couple of things. In terms of MCG doesn't have a roof. Okay, there's no roof.
Yeah.
So, in things like rainfall, Australian rules football doesn't stop no matter what happens. If it's rainfall, snowfall, whatever, they will still play. Okay. So, cricket is the only game that suffers. Rugby is the same. Okay. Football, apna soccer,
Yeah.
football is the same. So, no matter what happens, they will still play. Okay. The only game that is affected is cricket. Now, what happens is there is an insurance arrangement between Cricket Australia and the MCG and an independent Insurance Australia group, so that if there is a rain and the match is called off, the insurance pays for the facilities and things like that. Okay. Do you understand?
Yeah, I understand.
Am I answering your question? I don't
you
know.
have answered my
And it was not part of the ISO 27001 at all, because there's no technology involved in trying to do anything there.
Okay.
So it was totally, sorry?
So
It's a business, yeah.
So was only the IT part covered in the ISO 27001?
Yes, and that too very limited. So we actually scoped out a lot of the systems.
Is it possible for you to share the scope document per se, what you had covered and what was the boundaries, or you can show it?
I don't have it on me. I'm sorry, I don't travel with those.
Or can you just share that, okay, what were the boundaries and what was covered, the scope and the boundaries part?
The scopes were, the membership system, for example, was in scope. So we clearly said what is in scope. Yeah. So membership system, the turf management system, the data centers were in scope, the scoreboard management system was in scope. What else? The Wi-Fi for photographers was in scope. So all those things were in scope. What was out of scope was very specific systems like the light tower management, because the electricity company does all of that.
Yeah.
So that was then purposely kept out of scope. The national sports museum was specifically kept out of that. Okay. And now we are actually progressing to even move some other things out, because it's quite irrelevant, we have realized. Okay. Like as I mentioned, the scoreboard management system. Yeah. So we're trying to because it's a very specialized system. There's only one system. It doesn't need connectivity with anything else, really. There is an outsourced company who does that. So why do you want it in scope? Just leave it out. So we're trying to specifically leave those things out.
Okay. And lastly, when this certification was achieved?
4 years ago.
Okay.
4 years.
Thank you.
When you discussed that vendor difference with the vendor regarding the risk of the DR being in Sydney or here, you expressed that you just discussed it out with the CEO that what the risk was.
No, we did the risk. We actually had done a risk assessment proper process as per the risk, the spreadsheets that we had created, and we showed it to him, because it was going to cost a substantial. It was going to cost.
Why doesn't the vendor agree with that risk assessment? Why he is saying I will take it there here? No, its own business, but it has to be based on something which has been presented.
No, the vendors are like that. This is the problem. So for the vendor, he wanted to achieve some sales target to sell a part of the data center or whatever. Because they are just trying to maximize their money, they are just trying to get maximum sales. So that's what I said is, you be careful of what the vendor is telling you, because it may not be the entire truth. You do your own risk assessment. In an organization, you have to do your own risk assessment to say, well, okay, do I agree with what the vendor is saying or no? Because I understand my business risk the best.
I would like to say this is a IT management session. So we get some in that area. Initial starters, I may have missed it. You may have told, but at whose instance it was initiated gap analysis?
No, they So
at whose cost?
Yeah. No. The vendor charged the MCG for the gap assessment. And because they were the technology partner, this Big Blue company was the technology partner of MCG and still is. But they buy everything from them. Nothing is bought from anybody else, by the way. Okay, so there is, because, it's a thing, that big blue company will have every game that is advertised, will have a, proudly supported by whatever logos, all the advertising things. So that's why they support, they are the partner. So naturally, MCG went to them, we don't know anything about ISO 27001, we want to do it. What do you suggest? And said, okay, let's do a gap assessment. So they charged them for the gap assessment. They charged them, I can tell you how much money they charged. I mean, I could easily live for a year in a 5-star hotel, and that's how much they charged. And they gave a gap assessment with a shopping list of a few $1 million. You need this product, this product, this product, this product, and you will get ISO 27001. So you need to be careful of what the vendors are saying.
Like then when we are as a consultant also you are interested in outcome, then likely consulting will be objected.
Yes.
I think it's first of a kind. I think you could achieve
Sorry?
it. First of a kind achievement. All kudos to your company and getting it.
Thank you. Yeah. So it is still the first. It is still the only ground in the world with ISO 27001.
The question is, it's actually subjective. Like scope definition, what you want to have and what you want to take it out. It's still subjective in case
Yes.
of ISO.
Yes.
So broadly, I think you have membership, turf management system, CCTV, and access control. So these are the broad systems you have taken in the scope.
Yep.
So who actually decides it ultimately? Like CEOs, it's basically on your recommendation. CEO has to buy it off, sign it off on this.
We sort of did a workshop.
Yeah.
We did a workshop with the business people, not just the CEO. And that's where the involvement of the business people came from right from the beginning. We actually got them involved in saying, well, what should be the scope? Okay, what should we leave out? Because we don't want to take a responsibility of having processes and procedures and policies for a system that really we don't control or we don't care about, or it is not connected to anything in the ground. It is kind of separate. Let it go. Why do we want to put it in the scope? Okay, because I did tell them, the smaller the scope, the easier it's going to be. Okay, but at the same time, we don't want to make it so small that it becomes irrelevant. We don't want to do that either.
So which was the most important asset for you? I think just like you come out with risk analysis. So during the risk statement or risk analysis, you get to know the priority of the assets.
Yeah.
And based on those assets, you actually go for a risk assessment treatment. So which are the broadly assets? Like I think
the most important asset.
Yeah.
The membership management system.
Right. Yes. From where the money comes, actually.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Because all the money comes from there, and that is their like gold mine. Because if they lose or if something happens to the membership list, it's a major disaster for them. That's their main business.
Thanks.
Yeah. Sorry.
I think
Sorry. Can you give?
your presentation is it went much beyond the only ISMS achievement. It probably resulted in more of efficiency and effectiveness of the IT. It went beyond, as I said.
A little bit, yes, absolutely.
It's not only restricted to just achieving the certification.
Yeah, absolutely. And that I think what I'm
That's
trying
the value
to say.
drive, I guess. That's where
Exactly.
the it's
Exactly.
much beyond, as I see it.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right? And that's what I'm trying to bring across. If we do it nicely, if we do it in the right way, ISO 27001 can actually help us improve our business, improve the interactions within the business stakeholders. And you've hit it, right. That's exactly the point that I'm trying to.
Great achievement.
Yeah,
I think.
that's exactly the point I was trying to make. But it requires a lot of patience. It requires a lot of support and commitment from the CEO types, CEO level. We can't do it without that. At any stage, if CEO had said, "Arey, what are we doing here?" then the whole thing would have failed. Why do you want so much of my time? Why do you want me involved in everything? But any of these questions and it would have failed. But he was determined. He was saying, I want to be the first ground in the world to be ISO 27001. That he had it in his mind. And that is what actually took it across the line. Is that commitment from the top. Yeah.
18 months it took.
18 months it took. Yeah, sorry.
Thanks.
Sir.
What was eventually the cost they had to pay?
My fees? I better not answer that question. Let me say that I hired one more person in my team just to look after the MCG. I'm just kidding. Nah, it's a joint thing. We also invested quite a lot of time and effort, because for us, look, for me, there was a personal satisfaction. And I always, you won't believe it, but it's a long story. But when I was in, a very, very young fella in university, and the first time I saw a match being played on the TV and the MCG, first color TV in India at that time, 1982 or 83 or whatever. Right? First cricket match, I saw the MCG, I thought, that's where I want to live, based on that ground. And eventually things led, and I went there, etc., etc. But there was also a personal thing I wanted to make it a success. So we also invested a lot of time, effort, and we did quite a lot of pro bono work, by the way, and we still do for the MCG. And it's like open side, they invite us into everything, and it's a very good relationship to have. You couldn't have such a relationship with the customer. It's very good.
Maybe I'll frame his question in differently. Was there really any ROI out of this ISO 27000 exercise? Did they really get many benefits out of it? Okay, you had spent money, efforts and whatnot, and then your objective, of course, was to get ISO 27001.
Yeah.
That's okay, that was achieved. But did it also result as a fallout, was it a byproduct or something like that? Did really an ROI come out of this?
I don't think there's a financial ROI that we've done in any way, shape or form. That was never done.
Okay.
But there definitely was an increased risk awareness in the whole organization, and information systems risk awareness. There was definitely an increase in that.
Fine.
And as I said, there was a lot more understanding of each other's business between the business units.
A lot of intangible benefits.
A lot of intangible.
benefits.
We didn't do any.
They did benefit.
We didn't do any money evaluation. Unfortunately, we didn't do any of that. Yeah.
Thank you.
For those sheets, I think this session is C10. Am I right? C10? C17. Sorry. So for the sheet. Yeah. Look, any other questions? Please feel free to meet me.
I think any of us wants to visit MCG, they can contact you.
Absolutely, you can. Not a problem at all. You're most welcome. I'll take you down to the car park. I'm only one of the 20 people in the world who have been on the roof of the MCG. I still have the photos. I didn't show the photos, but I have the photos. Yeah, I tried doing it. I couldn't succeed. I tried to push my daughter's number up, but didn't succeed. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a very good go.
Thank you, Mr. Kapse. I would request you, there's a short break now of 10 minutes, and we would request you to come back, and there's a presentation on endpoint security and APT defense. Mr. Kanwal Mukhe, who's the founder of Network Intelligence. Thank you.
Yes.
From the Seclor counter outside this hall. Okay. So, all set? Okay. So, we have our next presenter for the day. That is Mr. Kanwal Mukhe, who is the founder of Network Intelligence. And he would be presenting on the topic endpoint security and APT defenses. I'll let Mr. Mukhe do the rest of the introductions.
So, good evening everybody, and I'm very grateful that all of you have actually come for the last session, because experience with a lot of conferences is by the second half of the second day, sightseeing starts to happen, and I'm sure a lot of you have plans to see Delhi. So my commitment to you is that if you had made plans from 5:30 onwards, you'll be able to commit to those plans. Okay. So we'll keep the talk concise and make sure that we keep also time for Q&A. So before I start, let me just do a quick introduction about myself for those who may not know about me. My name is KK Mukhi. Actually, only my parents nowadays call me Kaval, but that's okay. I'm certified to CISA, CISSP, CISM, and CRISC. Sometimes I tend to forget the full form of CRISC because ISACA actually gifted that certification to me as part of grandfathering. Okay, makes you feel older than you are. I run a company called